Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. Be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Mike, I'm actually probably certain that you did, but I'm not sure if you saw Vegas released point spreads for all of the Saints games this year. Did you happen to see it?
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious what stood out, because there's a few things that for me were very, very intriguing. For example, week 1, the Saints are a 3-point favorite over the Packers. Is Aaron Rodgers not going to be playing for the Packers week 1?
I think what they're gambling on now is that he won't.
Do you think he'll be sitting out? Okay, good. Sorry.
I would be surprised if he wasn't playing for them. At this stage, you would be almost like a trainer throwing in the white towel to deal him off. I don't know how that fan base would react to that at all. But again, I think Vegas is trying to kind of harbage a few bets here that, okay, and I think it's a split decision there on Aaron, but I think the majority of people there think he will not be back or he won't play week 1. Okay? So there's 2 parts to this. One is I think there's a split decision on if the Packers will trade him. But I think that their thinking is Aaron may not be in that Packer camp week 1.
Mike, in week 3, the Saints are at New England, and it's a pick. What is Vegas seeing there that I'm not to think that the Saints will go on the road and get that win potentially get that win in New England?
Okay, this team, and man, I've heard all the scenarios. Let me break down the middle part of the schedule for you and tell you where it's tough. No, where it's tough is the first 3 games. Hasn't Sean Payton every year brought this up about getting out of the blocks quickly?
Yes.
Okay. Why are people, and I get it because of who you playing, but hasn't this team been a really crackerjack team in October?
Yes.
I mean, big time. Come October, early November, they have been a very good football team. Either I'm blinded by something or there is just, I want to show you how tough the schedule is. First 3 games are really, to me, critical. You're going to most likely be playing without Marshawn Lattimore. You have no idea who the other corner is going to be at this stage. None. If Aaron Rodgers shows up week 1, you got yourself a tiger by the tail, Hoss. That's all I can tell you. If you are fixing to approach that, and who knows what happens in week 2. Again with Marshawn, I don't think it'll be more than a 2-game suspension. If it's that, it could be a 1 game. But this offense is going to be different this year. They're not going to run the same stuff that they did with Drew Brees. There's going to be some modification of the offense with Jameis, and how quickly all that will mesh out on the football field. This ain't practice. You're not playing in your backyard. This is the NFL. Offenses today have the advantage early in the season. I think September is an offensive month. By October, the defenses now have come into play where you can't practice defense. You can't practice tackling, okay, on your own. And then who knows what they do in practice today. I mean, it's somewhat limited on any of that. So you're playing a team. Let's say Rodgers shows up and play. Now, the Packers are a really good team week 1, and you without, one starting corner because he's playing with the Titans, and most likely your other corner. You better get one hell of a pass rush, Hoss. That's all I'm going to tell you. And that's a tough game. So week 2, last year, that first game came down to a kick that missed by half a yard of sending that game into overtime. McCaffrey missed, 80% of the season? You have a new quarterback in Sam Darnold, a defense that was really young a year ago that brings back some pretty good talent on the defensive side of the football for Carolina. And in week 3, you play New England, a team that's totally out of the quirk of what you've seen in the past from them. They've never been a team aggressive in free agency until this spring. And then all of a sudden now you see them getting really aggressive in trying to repiece that offense and put some pieces in place on the defensive side of the football. That, to me, Matt, is the most difficult part of this schedule, the first 3 weeks. And knowing your best corner may not be there for 2. And how quickly will the offense come around? Okay, you can draw it up on the board. Okay, at Seattle, play Tampa Bay. Then you're going to play the Titans a little bit later. Okay, all those 3 teams are tough. But doesn't history teach you anything? That in October and early November, this team has really gotten to the stride and played well.
Yep.
Where they have stumbled is early. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm away from the course. I'm going to predict something different. No, I think what Vegas is trying to tell you is that Pickett game in New England is just that at this stage. You're 3 games into the season. The big question mark is production from either one of the 2 quarterbacks, okay? Because Cam's going to get the advantage in New England, and, Jameis will be the guy here of the production there. Defensively, I think both teams will be better in week 3 than they are in week 1. But New England's still a pretty tough team to beat.
Yeah.
Still a very tough football team to beat. And so to me, that wasn't a surprise to me, showing the aggressive nature. What would be the surprise is this, and I've had a lot of coaches disagree with me on this. I think if a rookie and a veteran are tied, so to speak, it's a split decision on who should be the starter, I'll always go with the rookie. That veteran should KO the rookie at any position. If it's linebacker, if it's quarterback, if it's receiver, if it's tackle. If it's close, you got to think about it, I'm going with the rookie. That veteran has been here if he's a first year, second year, third year guy, and he can't beat out a rookie who's got orientation. Okay? He ain't on the field doing it. He beat you in training camp. That's how he beat you. To me, I think it's easy. When it's that close, I'm going with the rookie. What happens if it's a split decision in New England coming out of preseason? And I think Belichick sort of thinks that way too, that, man, you should have the big edge if you're the veteran. I go with the rook.
Interesting.
That would be the surprise in week 3. Mac Jones taking the snap as the starter.
One more thought on the point spreads that Vegas released for all of the Saints games this year. The chasm with the 2 games with Atlanta really surprises me. Nothing else really does. The Saints are a 6-point home favorite and a 1-point road dog. It's not often, Mike, is it, that you see a touchdown swing based on where the game is played?
Yeah, and always one of those games are close.
Yeah.
And so, what Vegas does in the offseason, they go back, and they're history people, okay? They go back and look at these games and how close it's been. And you go back over the last 4 or 5 years, those games in Atlanta, and they've been tight, man, really tight. And last year was a real winner. because I didn't see it initially. But when I went back and saw it on the kind of coach tape from above, the final play of the game, Matt Ryan launches one in the end zone, okay? It gets bounced around, and it gets knocked down. The guy with the best chance to get the football for Atlanta, Calvin Ridley, didn't play the football. He went after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He went for his head. You know, he went hunting, so to speak. Watch the end of that game, and if you can get the tape of it, watch how the ball is launched into the end zone. Ridley gets behind everyone, but doesn't make a play on the ball. He is so incensed. Now, who knows what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson did it.
I've been saying all game.
and so I think his deal is, I'm going after him.
Yeah.
And he goes after him and doesn't play the ball, and the ball bounces right to the side of him. He wasn't even looking at the ball, which to me is amazing. But beside the point, when you look at it, those games, boy, I can remember a Thursday night game a few years back, and the Saints are driving. You get it close. Debo in the end zone, interception. If you remember what it was 2 years ago, it was Drew Brees.
Coming off the bye, yeah.
Drew Brees. And, and he makes a play. Matt Ryan, they get him off the field. And they end up winning that game with Brees running it in for a score. You look at last year. You had a lead. All of a sudden, it evaporates because of a couple fumbles. And now you're down to the final play. Come on, history does teach you. And, I'm sort of just messing with from a schedule standpoint, but it is reality that, sometimes I think we don't go back and see how, as much as teams change from players and coaches and everything else, that a lot of what happens is sort of duplicated. And I think they believe that game in Atlanta is going to be tight, really tight. And the game in New Orleans, they think the Saints will take care of business with that particular deal. I don't see a lot of change on Atlanta's defense, that they're going to be that much better. You did have some really weird situations happen to you, though, in Atlanta. The Dallas game with the onside kick against Detroit. You had a lot of kind of strange occurrences.
Oh, yeah.
But, this team, again, is going to be built around their offense and scoring points. And what's going to happen is, when you're like that, you win one, you lose one. So you're going to be around 500. You're going to be a 7-9 team or whatever. And without Julio Jones. So I sort of get it, because that game in Atlanta has always been a peculiar game, and it has come down to literally a play or two. So I can see why they did that, with that situation. And then they had the Thursday night TV game where late in the game, okay, the Saints got this wrapped up. They got it in their pockets. Cameron Jordan spent more time in the backfield than Todd Gurley did. And what happens? You get onside kicks that got the game closer than it really should have been. And I can't explain why those events happen, but it has happened between those two teams, and it's happened a lot in Atlanta.
Mike, you there gave me the perfect transition, saying Julio Jones isn't going to be there. So let's go there. Julio Jones this week was cold called by Shannon Sharp. Said, I'm out of there. What's your feeling on Julio? Obviously, feels like you think he won't be there. What's a realistic destination? What does Atlanta get for him?
I think once it started to come out before the draft that they were at least looking, I think gave you the indication. And then them selecting Pitts, I think sort of told you now it's over with. Oh, I didn't need to have Julio tell Shannon Sharp that. I mean, that we talked about that before draft time. It's going to be a post June 1st deal. I'd be shocked if they get a first-round pick. And people that have put that out, I do remember the same individual saying the Jets will not trade Sam Darnold unless they get a first-round pick. They didn't get a first-round pick for Sam Darnold.
No, they didn't.
And so, okay, I can tell you anything if you're willing to repeat it. I can tell you anything.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the Falcons are leaking out to certain sources to try to up the ante on what they're going to get. I always felt you would get a second-round pick and a future pick if it's a middle-round pick or whatever. But I never thought they could get a first for Julio. Not at his age, injuries, salary. I'm helping you, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Atlanta, I'm helping you. I'm taking that salary off, for the most part, off your books. So I'm helping you, but I'm not giving up a first-round pick for a 31-year-old receiver who's had some injuries. And Julio is a tremendous football player. And when he's healthy, he's a big-time guy in this league. So I think a second-round pick, and I think what I would say Lanyap. They're going to get a little bit more. They'll get another pick somewhere down the line for him. To me, the Titans would be the ideal spot.
Okay.
Okay. Titans have been a team that's built around Derrick Henry. You've seen a lot of extra safety in the box. If I'm playing them, that's what I do. Come on. I got to tackle that big guy. In the fourth quarter, you're getting tired of getting run over by him. And so, I need an extra body. A.J. Brown's a tremendous player. But here's what I do. If I can get Julio, that safety can't get in that box anymore. I got A.J. Brown on one side. I got Julio Jones on the other. You cannot put that safety in the box anymore. You got to play him in deep coverage. People say, oh, it really helps out A.J. Brown. No, who it helps out? Derrick Henry. Common sense. Okay? Now he's going up against one less guy up front. One less guy. And you play in nickel and dime a lot of the times anyway. And so now you got to cover these two guys. John Robinson has been aggressive. Not saying he's hit on all that stuff, but look what he did last year. When it looked as though the Saints were on the verge of getting Jadeveon Clowney, he came up with a deal to get him.
Yep.
And Clowney did squat. Absolutely nothing. He was what he was. He collected that paycheck. They used the first-round pick on Isaiah Wilson, who is out of the league completely after 1 year. They took a first-round pick selection who has had 2 back surgeries at 21 years old and potentially will need another. John's been a risk taker, and he's not hit on all that. He did hit on Tannehill, though.
Yeah.
When everybody sort of, Ryan Tannehill can't play, Ryan Tannehill could play. And it's too bad. And, look at Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown. 2 second-round picks. That's where they've really made their money when you look at the production from those 2 guys. I think Tennessee would be a really good spot for him. I would be very hesitant to trade him to any team in the NFC. Okay, I see Tennessee once every 4 years. I don't want to face him every year. And I'm certainly not trading him to the NFC South.
Mike, what about terms? What if there were a team? Look at Tampa, for example. They're just stockpiling everything. What if there were a team in the NFC or in the division that was willing to give you what you wanted?
It better be a heck of a lot more than what I'm getting from somebody else.
Yeah.
Come on, you don't really want to do that. And sometimes it does happen. Sometimes there are trades like that. But it's for a star player, I want him completely away from me. And so I think Tennessee, I could see New England possibly getting involved here. Bill's never been great with draft picks. As far as, over the last few years, really he struggled in that category. Really, really has. When he sort of has taken over the scouting department, I think the veteran players he's unbelievable with, but college players he's really struggled in that area. So I could see New England being a team that would be very, very interested in him, in trying to acquire him. I just think there's a small group of teams that maybe what's happening now is Terry is trying to open up maybe something else because he feels as though he's not going to get the first-round pick. And so he's going to leak it out to reporters, and they're going to put it on ESPN or Fox or whatever that, hey, I got a first-round pick for Julio Jones in my pocket. Well, if you do, you better cash it in. That's the way I look at it. I mean, come on. How many teams? Nobody's going to give up. There may be one team that's willing to do it, but I'd be surprised. I think he goes for a second and something else. But I think they try to get him out of the NFC and try to trade him into an AFC team, to be honest with you. And we did see the situation with Stafford happen where Detroit dealt him to the Rams, but look what they got in exchange.
Right. Well, they got a starter and a bunch of picks.
They got a ton of picks out of that particular deal and got a little bit of cap relief also with that. So it's possible an NFC team could get involved. My old thought was that when initially it came in, if I wanted to make Aaron Rodgers happy, I'll make that phone call. But I think that would be admitting that maybe it's not going to work here, and my quarterbacking position is not good. And I think early reports from Jordan Love, I think, is accurate that he's still struggling. He is still struggling with the offense and with accuracy. And so, Matt, you've dug yourself a hole here, the Packers, that is going to be you're going to have to get on bended knee with Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have to do it.
Mike, it's almost obligatory at this point. I got to ask about Arik Gilbert, especially with some of the rumblings that maybe he's working on some academics and could end up back at LSU. Do you have any new feeling on Gilbert at this point?
Feeling is what I've told you the last few weeks. I'd be surprised he ends up back at LSU.
Yeah. Well, it would be a big boost if they were able to get him back here, no doubt.
Yeah, he's a unicorn player.
No doubt.
He's unique. LSU has not had a tight end anything close to that athletically. He's a big target guy. He's like a receiver playing tight end. But, man, there are so many twists and turns with this and having to deal with it and everything else. And as soon as you hear good things that, hey, he came back and talked to Coach O and everything else, and there was a little buzz of optimism. And then all of a sudden, that sort of sidled down. Then it's, well, he's trying to get his academics in order. Well, if that's the case, how come he isn't working out with the team?
Yeah.
Okay, if he wants to be here, wouldn't he be out working with his teammates right now?
Would he have to be academically eligible to work out during the summer? I really don't know that rule.
See, man, listen, all of that, is all sort of woven into a sweater that I can't fit. Put it to you that way. And then that you're starting to hear now that Georgia, Tennessee, back involved with him. And so I got no clue. I understand why Ed and the team would want him back.
Of course.
You've seen his potential as a player. But the ball's all in his court at this stage. It really is. And every day I hear something different. And you know what? My first impression was once he left, you were never going to see him back in an LSU uniform.
I thought he'd be at Georgia. I was very surprised.
I thought it'd be Georgia or Tennessee because his high school quarterback is there. And so you have a little bit of a connection. But, Matt, I guess we could bounce this around all over the place. The best thing I can tell you is my first impression was he wouldn't return, and I'll stay that until I see it. I got to see it to believe it.
Fair enough. Mike, what about a former Tiger in Danielle Hunter? He missed all of last season with an injury.
Right.
Signed a new deal in 2018, a $72 million contract, something along those lines. And he's not at OTAs, apparently not happy with his deal. Is there a chance Danielle Hunter isn't back in Minnesota or gets a new deal there?
I think he's trying to get a new deal there. He has seen some of the other deals that have happened, and I think he would like to get an extension or extra money placed into there. And really, what the Vikings got no pass rush last year.
Oh, God.
Zip. So he sort of feels, hey, don't I have you over the barrel a little bit in a make-or-break season for Mike Zimmer? That might seem odd, but that owner has gotten accustomed to winning. And so I sort of believe, agents are smart enough to pick this out. That, hey, listen, Mike's made some decisions here that the owners approved of because he's wanted it. His coach and his GMs wanted it. But now, I got to deal with the money situation with Hunter. I think this gets resolved, and he's back at training camp. He's too big of a cog for Mike, who is a defensive-oriented coach. He believes pressure breaks the pipe. You got to get a guy from the outside. Last year, no Everson Griffin, no Danielle Hunter, and you saw what happened. And, he made that comment after the Christmas game against the Saints. I've never had a defense this bad in my life. Now, Take a look at Mike. He ain't no spring chicken. He's been around for quite some time. To make that comment tells you how much he missed not having those two guys come off the edge. And, I think they do an extension or redo with Hunter. He's too valuable a player if he's healthy. If everything's fine, then, man, listen, just look at the numbers tell you the story with him and how he's gotten to be one of the more dominant edge rushers in the league.
Mike Detillier is with us. He's on Twitter at Mike Detillier. We're going to hear your questions from Mike in a little more than 5 minutes from right now. Mike, I did want to ask you, as a guy who's obviously been around the Saints franchise forever, about some thoughts on J.D. Roberts, who was the second coach in Saints history. He's the guy who drafted Archie Manning, and he passed at 88. And honestly, Mike, I'm a young guy that the first coach I remember is Jim Mora in the 80s. For those like me who are maybe younger and don't remember J.D. Roberts, what is his legacy in New Orleans?
Man, J.D., I was just a kid, but I watched, the Saints when he was the head coach. And so this is now a flip forward. This is in the 90s. Wife and I had a restaurant. I did not recognize him, and he was sitting not far from me with a group of people. He got up, walked right up to me, and so, I stood up. He shook hands with me, and he says, "You know who I am?" And I said, "No, sir, I sure don't." And when he said it, I took a good look. And I said, "Coach." And he was like, "You got it. How you doing?" I said, "Great." He said, "Is Buddy Diliberto still on my ass?" I said, "No, not anymore. You're not coaching." And so he laughed. So did I, because I was working with Buddy at that time. And, he was like, man, Buddy was relentless. And he says, I told him, I said, "Coach, I'll never forget Buddy's comment that Buddy had the Tom Fierce show before it was from the press box. It was the Tom Fierce show on television. So Buddy had gotten to be close friends with Fierce, and Tom was leaking all this information out to Buddy. How bad the organization was being run, how the owner was meddlesome, and he wanted to be involved with everything. And so one thing led to another, and so Buddy had all the inside information, and he got it straight from the head coach who's telling him this. So, J.D. tells me later, we exchanged numbers, and we talked about it. He said, "Mike, I tried to make amends with him." And I said, "Buddy, could you come over? You and I can talk." And he said, "Listen, I understand you had a good relationship with Coach Fierce, but, I'm in charge now, and we're going to go through some difficult times, but I think we can get this team back on track." And but he was like, well, the problem's not you. The problem's the owner. And JD said, Mike, I made the critical mistake of telling him. And he said, listen, I had never been a head coach before. I'd been a head coach, sort of on like an arena team, or a farm club team. So he said, I tell him, listen, buddy, I'm telling you, John Mecom is one of the great owners in pro football. And he said, Buddy deadpan looked at him and said, listen, if John Mecom was the only owner in the NFL, he wouldn't be a good owner. And he said, that did it. He said, from that day forward, we never got along. He said, we occasionally would speak, but he said, he was after me. And he said, and he said, he said, I had no experience at the professional level other than being an assistant coach. I had been a scout year one with the Saints, and then he said, basically, I was kind of an assistant. But he was a really good college player at Oklahoma. That was the connection to the Mecoms. He had been an All-American football player, had been in the military, done a little coaching. I think he was an assistant with the Oilers in the 60s, and then he got hired with the Saints. But he was known as a disciplinarian. And John felt that this team lacked discipline. And so Buddy and I got together in 2004, and that we were going to write a book about the Saints in the early years and up until then. And Buddy said, I'll never forget, Mecom telling him, Buddy, the problem is it's not, we lack discipline. He said, John, what do you not understand? What you lack is talent. And he said it's on both sides. You don't have the talent on the field, and you don't have the talent to pick people that knows talent because you get involved. Well, that sort of lit the flame on why he got thrown off the plane. It wasn't the major reason, but JD was there, and we laughed about it, that what actually got him thrown off the plane was Dick Gordon, who was an astronaut and retired from NASA. John Mecom hires him as the new general manager of the Saints with no background in football, none. He had been an astronaut. But he could get Mecom to parties, and he knew a lot of people. And at that time, man, the astronauts, they were, like movie stars. And so at a luncheon, Dick Gordon says, we're 3 players away from going to the Super Bowl. And Buddy couldn't wait to get back to the studio to cut this. And he said, Dick Gordon said something, and I'm going to agree with it. And he said the Saints are 3 players away from the Super Bowl. That being God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. That was it. Life. And JD said, Mike, I can confirm that was it. He said Mecom was so enraged with that, it got him thrown off. And Fred Williams, who at that time was sort of bodyguard for Mecom and had been in the police department, was the one who went breaking the news. And he told Buddy, listen, you banned for life plus 10 years. And Buddy was, what do you mean that 10 years? He said, 10 years, just in case you're the next Lazarus. He said, we're going to make sure that happens. So Buddy can get back on the team playing now. But JD was put in a situation that was unwinnable, and he had no experience anywhere as a head coach at the professional or college level. And so he was put in a bad situation. He was a tough guy, a tremendous college football player. And I think his senior year, he finished 8th in the running for the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, wow.
As a lineman. And so he went through some tough times. The rookie year with Archie, they were 4-8-2. And they had played some pretty good football that year. They had lost some close games. They beat the Rams week 1 when the Rams were a really good football team. And then they beat the eventual Super Bowl champs, the Cowboys, early in the year. And so there was hope that, man, 4-8-2, they were returning everybody, Archie in year 2, but, man, it fell apart the next year. And then they took an embarrassing preseason loss to the Patriots, and JD was out. But he was hard for one reason, or 2 reasons. disciplinarian, and secondly, Mecum had control over him. And he admitted that he had no control on players, trades, draft, nothing. Not even the final roster. That's how bad it was. Okay, that's a generation and a half that have no idea how bad it was here with John. And John wanted to be a micromanager. And the other thing about it is when you grow up the son of a rich guy, and he did it a certain way, Mecum Sr., you kind of want to show your dad, I can do it a different way. And I think he always felt, man, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it my way. And I can say that it wasn't Dad that did this. It was me. He should have listened to Pop. That's all I can tell him.
Jerry says, ask Mike, have you ever written a book about your Saints stories? If not, you need to.
I thought about it. Man, because, listen, I've got all that stuff. Buddy and I had prepped it and done a lot of background from, well, even before the Saints were given a franchise. And I had interviewed Dave Dixon. We spent like three and a half days together talking. And so I would think about it. I really would.
Mike, I don't want a book. I want a movie, bro. With you playing yourself is what I want.
I don't know about
Mike,
the
I've had the pleasure of sitting with you and listening to story time, and I'm sure reading it would be awesome, but ain't nothing like sitting there listening to you when you get going. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's a real gas.
Somebody asked, Mike, we got another question to say, hey, if Kevin James plays Sean Payton in a movie, who would play Mike D?
No, I have no idea on that. I do have some involvement in that genre, let's just say, but I'm not an actor or anything else. And the movie business, let me just say this, movie business is coming back in Louisiana, and it's coming back pretty strong. I would think by, 2022, you're going to see a huge resurgence of the movie business here. And we had a lot of it here on the Bayou. Tremendous amount, Bayou River Parish area, where they filmed a number of different films along in Baton Rouge also. So I do know from what I hear and from what I get from guys who can sign a pretty big check, is coming back.
Mike, you're the best. We'll be back with you next Thursday. Thanks
Thank
as
you,
always.
Matthew.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.